Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we're going to be talking about Ripple and XRP as well as the vast majority of finance. So let's just dive in. Let's start off with this tweet here from the Kabaisi letter. So in the last 2 weeks, the last 14 days, we have seen some of the largest events around the US dollar dominancy as well as the world of the economy. Mainly it's all centered around China, the BRICS, Saudi Arabia, obviously. Like all of this, what we're seeing right now is these nations um, taking advantage of the fact that the US has grossly inflated the US dollar, and they have taken this entire system that they took control of ever since we got rid of the gold standard. They've taken advantage of it. And the problem is that when you are in the position that the US is in right now, you cannot afford to make mistakes. You cannot afford to push innovation outside of the US. You cannot afford to miss out on a technological advancement like no other. And guess what? The US is not only losing the fight in terms of finances, economically, if you will, but also they're losing the fight in terms of technological advancements around crypto. But in the last 2 weeks, what we have seen is Saudi Arabia considering accepting Chinese yuan for oil sales. China and France complete the first LNG trade using yuan, which, by the way, I do have that announcement here. But there's something very interesting about this as well. And then we do see Russia considers using Chinese yuan as a reserve currency. Saudi Arabia partners with China to build refinery for 83.7 billion Chinese yuan, $12.2 billion. China and Brazil agree to use Chinese yuan in cross-border transactions. The percentage of global reserves in US dollars is down from 72% in 1999 to 59% now. Is the US dollar's dominance decreasing? Which I ask all of you. Do you believe that the US dollar's dominance is decreasing? If you have been watching the channel for the last couple months, you should know that, and I even should say the last year, because we've been reporting on this for over a year now, then you would know that the US dollar is at a very, very critical moment in time. What I've been addressing with the BRICS is that they've been expanding rapidly, but mainly they've been moving away from the US dollar because all of these nations are seeing a huge opportunity, and they are 100% going to seize it because the US is not doing anything to counteract it. A lot of people have been addressing if this is all by plan or not, and honestly, I think that it's all by plan. I said this in my video from earlier today, where I was talking to you guys about how you should be focused on crypto, you should be focused on gold, silver, but also you should be focused on food, water, and weaponizing yourself because a lot of things are going to start to spiral out of control in the US. But we do see down here Saudi Arabia just announced a trade alliance with China, Russia, India, Pakistan, and foreign Asian nations to decrease reliance on US dollar. High inflation and the banking crisis are putting even more pressure on the US dollar. There's a ton of pressure on the US dollar right now, and I've been mainly looking at the US dollar in the last couple weeks, and I've had this idea on what's going to happen with the US dollar. And so far, it has been moving pretty right on par with what I've been assuming is going to happen with the US dollar. I've seen a lot of people thinking that we're about to rally, we're about to trade within this, and then just continue to go higher. But the problem with this is that I just don't see a catalyst for that. I don't see where the value creation is going to come from, especially as you look at what the Fed is going to do next. Like the Fed is at this point in time where they either have to raise the rates or pause the rates, and either scenario will cause chaos within our economy. But also, one thing that I've been looking at is the 12-month, the 1 year chart for the US dollar. And do you see something very interesting? Look at this constant lower high scenario that is forming on the US dollar, which means guess what? Every single time that we see something like this, where we have a significant topping point, the last time that we seen this was back in January of 2001, as well as January of 2002, as you guys do see this. One thing that I've been looking at is where we are at currently here as well. We've had this significant topping point back in January of 2022, and just recently in January of 2023, we topped out on the 702, the 106 level. We also seen this back here in 84 and also 85. We had a significant topping point on both of these at resistance. But what ended up happening after the fact, now I'm not assuming that we are going to have a massive drop like this, but this thing collapsed for the next 3 years, down 50%. Back here in 2001, in the first 3 years, it dropped about 34%. We're at and a total of like 41, almost 42%. Back here, the total was about 52, almost 52.5%. But this is significant. Now, I'm not assuming that we are going to see a massive 40+% drop, but if we did, this would basically be creating newer lows. I'm not assuming that that's going to happen. Is it possible? I mean, if every single nation moves away from the US dollar and the US dollar basically becomes nothing, then yeah, I could see that. But what I am looking at is us retesting the demand here, which is at roughly 89, almost 90, which is a 21% drop from our topping point. And even then, we could also test this 82.5% zone, which would be almost a 30% drop. This is testing 2014 levels and resistance, but it doesn't matter. All we know is that as we look back in time, the US dollar is still very weak on the macro. But also, as we do see nations moving away from the US dollar, we also see them trying to create these newer systems, which again, I've talked about DLT becoming the forefront and the core infrastructure for the new financial system. I do believe that this is going to be the case. And a lot of it is CBDCs being issued out on DLTs as well, which I just recently talked about CBDCs and how the only ones that really need CBDCs are the central banks to retain control. But we see here from Euroclear, they finalized DLT bond settlement platform. And the crazy thing about this is that going back over here to China and France completing the first LNG gas trade using Chinese yuan, ending the reliance on the US dollar for energy trades, well, guess what? This has to do with France. The initiative builds on a recent trial led by Euroclear with the French central bank to use blockchain for bond transactions with the central bank digital currency used as payment, extending the idea beyond a mere experiment to cover live transfers of security tokens. Euroclear is building and is finalizing the first minimum viable product of a DLT platform for issuance and settlement of digital bonds. The craziest thing about this as well, though, is that as we look at this, this is focused on a new trading environment. And it will link to legacy bond markets to ensure there wasn't reduced liquidity as well. But the crazy thing about all of this is we're basically at this point in time where every nation outside of the US is moving away from the US dollar. But also, we are seeing a lot of these nations moving extremely fast on crypto adoption. And even Johnny Deaton did quote this tweet over here from Mark W. Yusko. We do see American regulators have a mistaken perception that a globally decentralized network can be governed and controlled by one jurisdiction. 80% of Bitcoin is owned by non-Americans. Johnny Deaton did quote this, and he said, the arrogance of American regulators like Gary Gensler is going to cause the United States' position as I think that he meant cost, but doesn't matter. Its position as the world's leader in global trade and finance. Foreign regulators in the UK, Singapore, UAE, Japan, Switzerland, and elsewhere are eating our lunch when it comes to crypto. And yes, they 100% are, while we have idiots like Elizabeth Warren, for example, building an anti-crypto army. The problem, though, is that I think a lot of people are missing the point here. It's not so much about the fact that they want to kill crypto or, just leave crypto alone forever. It's the fact that what they want is they want to create this narrative around crypto. They want to take control of it, and they want to give all the power to the suits and Wall Street, which I've addressed many times on this channel. But at what cost, right? You got to question at what cost. And just like Johnny Deaton is saying here, I think that what we are going to see is a lot of these nations fully adopt crypto and embrace the technology behind it and utilize it within their trading and settlement systems. And it's going to become the core, and the US is basically going to be left fully behind. See, I have this concern for US based individuals, myself included, because we all know what's happening. We're seeing a technological advancement like no other. And the BRICS as well, which, by the way, if you guys don't know, the BRICS have been very pro crypto for so long, as Bitcoin maxis do claim that it's all Bitcoin, right? But The BRICS have been very, very pro crypto for so long now, and in the last year, it's been really ignited in terms of BRICS moving towards blockchain-based trading systems as well as settlement systems. And the craziest thing about this is that as we look at the BRICS, the 5 countries in BRICS now contribute 31.5% of global GDP, while G7 share has fallen to 30%. BRICS is expected to contribute over 50% of global GDP by 2030. This is perhaps the most important macro chart that doesn't get shared much. And this is also a thing that I think everyone should be focused on is, how fast BRICS is expanding. Because if they are utilizing crypto-based trading and settlement systems, well, guess what's going to end up happening? They're going to embrace the technology. Their GDP is going to grow rapidly, and US, who knows where the US will be at this point in time, because by 2030 things can look a lot different around the macro economy. And I do fear for all US based individuals, myself included, like I said, because it seems as though the end of the US dollar as a reserve currency is here. We also see the end of the US becoming a leader around finance. I don't believe that they're going to be a leader around finance any longer. And the craziest thing about all of this is that when you look at the connections to the BRICS, for all those XRP holders out there that have been focused on Ripple, for an example, Ripple as a company has been creating and inking deals with a lot of BRICS companies, as well as building a lot of connections within the BRICS countries as well. And the craziest thing about that is a lot of those major partnerships are all centered on settlement, on trading platforms, cross-border payments, etc. I'm not saying that Ripple will play a vital role in the evolution of the financial system, but I do believe that crypto and DLT will, and it's going to be the ones that are extremely efficient, that can move value very fast and at a fraction of a cost. And we just talked about XRP being utilized to move $755 million for 1 penny in 4 seconds. As we see the technological advancement moving on and being ignited, as well as the move away from the US dollar, we are going to see an astronomical event like no other in time happen before our eyes. And it is the rise of this new financial system. I want you all to realize what is happening right now. This is why I have been reporting on this for well over a year, because most Americans are oblivious to this right now because they're not reporting on this every single day. This is something that should be covered every single day, especially in the last 2 weeks, right? Because now we just recently seen CNN and Fox starting to report on the BRICS nations expanding rapidly and the US dollar as a reserve currency basically being at this point in time replaced, right? But I think everyone, as we look at the events recently in time, and if you are a crypto holder, everyone should be focused on the US dollar, because as this does lose significant grounds here, we haven't lost it yet, but I have alerts set up. If we lose to 618, I do believe that we're going to go into a free fall down to about 90 on the US dollar. We might have, a little relief rallies in here like this, but I do believe that we will target the 90 level on the US dollar. And when we do, right, and it's all going to be the catalyst around the BRICS moving away from the US dollar as well as many other nations. When we start to collapse like that, risk on asset classes like crypto and even the stock market are going to go crazy. And also, I think everyone, as I said in my last video, should be focused on gold, silver, food, water, and also weaponizing yourself. This is a very important time to really be awake and to really watch all of the events unfolding. And for anybody out there in the US, like I said, myself included, what we really need to see is a significant event around the Ripple versus SEC case, because we need to have some boundaries set up in the US, because these regulators, this anti-crypto army that Elizabeth Warren is building, this is absolutely ridiculous. Again, As I've said it time and time again over on this channel, the US is really, really at this point in time far, far behind any sort of innovation that's happening around finance as well as technology. And this is going to cost the US a lot. Just like Johnny Deaton is saying, a lot of nations, regulators in mind, right, are eating our lunch. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe to notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and in the free Discord down in the description below. As always, up to you all. Have a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are in this beautiful world. It's been Nick. Peace out, guys.